Dear students, we are now discussing regarding the cystometrogram. In that we have reached at the segment 3 of the cystometrogram, and on the next class I will show the picture of this cystometrogram. So this segment 3, as the pressure increases with the connection of about 300 to 400 ml of fluid, there will be contraction of detrusor muscles in an intense way. Okay, and due to this intense contraction of the detrusor muscles, the person will be having an urge for micturition. Still, voluntary control is possible up to 600 to 700 ml, at which the pressure rises to about 35 to 40 centimeter of water. So up to 300 to 400 ml of urine in the bladder, only there will be 10 centimeter of water pressure within the bladder. But as the fluid content or as the urine within the bladder gets increased, means the pressure also increased. So if the urine content in the bladder exceeds 600 to 700 ml, means the pressure will be raised up to the 35 to 40 centimeter of water. So that will cause intense contraction of the detrusor muscles, and during that time the person may feel an urge to void. And when the intravesical pressure rises more than 40 centimeter, then what happens? The contraction of detrusor muscle become still more intense, and the voluntary control of micturition cannot be possible. The person cannot hold much urine during that time if the pressure is more than 40 centimeter of water, and during that time a pain can be felt by the person, and that pain sensation develops, and micturition should be a must in this stage. Then what is micturition reflex? Micturition reflex is a reflex by the micturition occurs. As we all know that micturition is a process which is based on the reflex. So micturition reflex is a reflex that is based on that the micturition can be occurs, and this reflex is elicited by the stimulation of stretch receptors situated on the walls of the urinary bladder and urethra. So on the wall of the urinary bladder and the urethra, there are so many stretch receptors are present, and due to the stretching of this receptors, so many impulses are generated, and that impulses cause the micturition reflex. Okay, and when about 300 to 400 ml of urine is collected in the bladder, intravesical pressure increases. So that due to that pressure, the bladder wall gets stretched. So there are so many stretching receptors present which get stimulated. Okay, these stretching receptors stimulated out, and so many impulses are generated there. Then how will be the pathway for micturition reflex? So let us see that sensory or afferent impulses from these receptors reach the sacral segment of the spinal cord through the sensory fibers of the pelvic nerve. So ആദ്യം ഈ സ്ട്രെച്ചിങ് റിസെപ്റ്റേഴ്സ് സ്റ്റിമുലേറ്റഡ് ആകുമ്പോൾ കുറേ അഫറൻറ്റ് ഇമ്പൾസസ് ജനറേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്. അത് സാക്രൽ സെഗ്മെൻറ്റ്, ആ ഇമ്പൾസസ് പതുക്കെ സാക്രൽ സെഗ്മെൻറ്റിലേക്ക് റീച്ച് ചെയ്യും ത്രൂ ദ പെൽവിക് നെർവ്സ്. പെൽവിക് നെർവ് ഇസ് എ പാരസിമ്പത്തറ്റിക് നെർവ്. Then motor or afferent impulses produced in the spinal cord travels through the motor fibers of the pelvic nerve towards the bladder and the internal sphincter. So there are so many nerve fibers are produced in the spinal cord that can travel through the motor fibers of the pelvic nerve towards the bladder and the internal sphincter. So when these impulses reach at the bladder and internal sphincter, what happens means it causes contraction of the detrusor muscle and relaxation of the internal sphincter. So during the time of relaxation of internal sphincter, what happens? The urine that is collected in the bladder enters the urethra from the bladder. So from the bladder, the urine will enters into the urethra. So now the urine is presented in the urethra. From the bladder, the urine has passed into the urethra. So this urethra also having what? The stretching receptors. So the stretch receptors present in the urethra also get stimulated. so which can send afferent impulses to the spinal cord through the pelvic nerve fibers. Okay, so now the impulses generated from the spinal centers inhibit the pudendal nerve. So as the stretching receptors of this urethra is stimulated, or due to the action of impulses generated in the urethra, stretching receptors of the urethra, there will be inhibition of the pudendal nerve inhibited. So due to this inhibition of this pudendal nerve, the external sphincter gets relaxed and micturition can be happen. Then once the micturition reflex begins, it can be said as regenerative. The initial contraction of the bladder further activates the receptors to cause still further increasing sensory impulse from the bladder and urethra. So this micturition reflex is a self-generative process, self-regenerative process, because if any initial contraction of the bladder can further activate the receptors to cause further increase in the sensory impulses from the bladder and urethra, and these impulses in turn cause further increase in reflex contraction of the bladder. So the cycle repeatedly continues and until the force of contraction of the bladder reaches to the maximum and the urine is bored out completely. So ആ പ്രോസസ്സ് ഇങ്ങനെ റിപ്പീറ്റ് ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ടേ ഇരിക്കും. അങ്ങനെ കംപ്ലീറ്റ് ആയിട്ട് യൂറിൻ എക്സ്ക്രീറ്റ് ഔട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നത് വരെ ഈ പ്രോസസ്സ് കണ്ടിന്യൂ ആയിരിക്കും. During micturition, the flow of urine is facilitated by increase in the abdominal pressure due to the voluntary contraction of the abdominal muscles. Okay, so during micturition process, this flow of urine is facilitated by intra-abdominal pressure due to the voluntary contraction of the abdominal muscle. Voluntary contraction of the abdominal muscles can be also occurs during this micturition process. So due to this voluntary contraction, the intra-abdominal pressure can be increased, which can also facilitate the micturition process. Then higher centers for micturition. Which are the higher centers for micturition? Spinal centers for micturition are present in the sacral and lumbar segments, but these spinal centers are regulated by higher centers. So there are spinal centers for micturition which is presented in the sacral and lumbar segments, and these spinal centers are regulated by some of the higher centers. The higher centers which control micturition are of two types. So there are inhibitory centers and there are facilitatory centers. So there are two types of higher centers for regulating the spinal centers of micturition, which is known as inhibitory centers and facilitatory centers. First one is inhibitory centers for micturition. Centers in midbrain and cerebral cortex inhibit the micturition by suppressing the spinal micturition centers. So as its name indicates, it can inhibit the centers of micturition. So these centers are mainly located in the midbrain and cerebral cortex, which can inhibit the micturition process by suppressing the spinal micturition centers. Okay. The next higher center is facilitatory centers for micturition. These centers are located in the pons, which can facilitate micturition through the spinal centers. It can stimulate the spinal centers for micturition process. Some centers in cerebral cortex can also facilitate micturition process. So there is a graphical representation for the micturition process is given here. So initially what happened, there will be filling of urinary bladder. So as there is filling of urinary bladder, the intravesical pressure increases. So due to this increased pressure, what happened? There will be stimulation of stretching receptors presented in the bladder. So as the stretching receptors get stimulated, so many afferent impulses are passed through the pelvic nerve into the sacral segments of the spinal cord, and so many efferent impulses are generated in the spinal cord and which passes through the pelvic nerve, and that impulses finally reaches the detrusor muscles, which causes